Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 271 of the All Dolphins podcast on this Monday, April 22nd, 2024. And we're going to be talking, obviously, a lot of draft related stuff involving the Dolphins. I'm sure the major thing on your mind right now for anybody watching this is where's the Expos hat? I didn't feel like wearing it today. I'm just showing off my new haircut.
It looks pretty.
Oh,
I especially like the shave. It's a little bit closer than you're used to, but
yeah.
I'm more of a wolf out kind of guy.
Yes, you are. I figured, you know what? I'm going to get a cut it good and deep, and then I don't have to hassle for it for.
Excellent point, and you look 10 years younger, sir.
I do. Okay.
Oh yeah, sexy. Of course. I think you should take your wife out on a date tonight.
I'm bringing sexy back. For those of you who are happy right now not to see the Expos hat, can't make promises that I'm not going to be back to it tomorrow. So anyway, enough with that. We'll do a quick history lesson for those who like it. For those who don't, sorry.
Tough titty, says the kitty.
I haven't heard that one in a while. So today's episode 271. So 71 Dolphins have made the 71st overall pick one time, and actually very, very nicely. It was in Omar's first year on the beat.
2007.
Fourth round pick. It was a running back from Florida State.
Oh, Lorenzo Booker.
Oh, very good.
Funny story about Lorenzo Booker. I do have funny stories. It's not really funny. Lorenzo Booker was added. I covered Florida State before I covered University of Miami and came down here. Lorenzo Booker was added to the Florida State Seminoles team in a class that featured Davey Ford, who was from a Palm Beach high school. I watched, there were three backs. I can't remember who the third back was. Maybe D. Feaster. I can't remember who the third back was. Davey Ford, Lorenzo Booker was like parade All-American, the number one back in the country. Davey Ford, who was just a three-star prospect from maybe Palm Beach Gardens. I'm throwing out a Palm Beach school name because I can't remember exactly where he was head and shoulders, unequivocally better than Lorenzo Booker. So a three-star prospect from South Florida was better than the parade All-American Miami back. Unfortunately for Davey Ford, he suffered an ACL injury in his freshman season and was never, ever the same player, while Lorenzo Booker had I believe, 4-year career at Florida State. Even when the Dolphins drafted him, everybody knew he wasn't that special. Kind of a scat back, special teams weapon.
Smallish.
Yeah. He was supposed to be the next Warwick Dunn. He never had the toughness of Warwick Dunn. I'm sure he had a decent NFL career because if you make it to the NFL, you're a pretty decent player. But parade All-American, and that's the moral of the story is I will take a three-star prospect from South Florida over a parade All-American from Nevada, Missouri.
Okay. No, that's fair.
But I think only time that I will value or put stock into somebody's star ranking is if they're from California, Texas, Virginia, maybe Georgia.
Booker was from California. I'm just looking him up right now.
Yeah.
Dolphins traded him after 1 year. Didn't last long. Oh, partly because he was there in 2007 when Ken Cameron was the head coach. Then there's the regime change where the emphasis goes from speed and skill to toughness and physicality.
Bigger is better. Remember their philosophy? Bigger is better.
Yeah. And then Bill Parcells looked at Lorenzo Booker like, too small. Traded him to the Eagles, I think, for a fourth round pick maybe, and he played 3 more years with the Eagles. And my quick recruiting number of stars doesn't matter story was Russell, Maryland. I'm going way back here. I apologize for the younger ones. Who was a star defensive tackle at the University of Miami, which was the only Division I school to offer him a scholarship other than Northern Illinois, and he wound up becoming the first overall pick in the draft with the Dallas Cowboys.
I want to address the 2007 draft of Miami Dolphins because that's an infamous draft thumbs up that way. Now, obviously, if they would have selected Brady Quinn, it probably would have been a worse draft than what it turned out to be because Brady Quinn was a pretty horrible quarterback. But in that class, they had Teddy Ginn, who had a pretty respectable NFL career. Parcells traded him the second year, I believe. He was there the first year. Parcells traded him the second year. John Beck, who absolutely was a bust. Not going to say anything negative about Tua's quarterback coach.
Strictly as a player.
Strictly as a player, was a bust. Samson Satelli, who was too small for Parcells. He went and got Jake Grove. Jake Grove lasted 1 year before he turned out to be a bad free agent signing. Lorenzo Booker
got injuries.
Yes, still was a bad signing. They gave, I think he made like a ridiculous amount of money for 1 year. And then Paul Soliai, who initially was a bust, but turned his career around.
He did.
And became a franchise player. Reagan Mawia, who clearly fizzled out. Drew Marino.
Juggernaut.
Yeah, Drew Marino fizzled out. Kelvin Smith, not great. And Brandon Fields, a punter. Abraham Wright was at the end of that draft class. But you're talking about a whole draft class that basically got thrown away. And that's what happens sometimes when you have collateral loss, when you have regime change, organizational change, and there's collateral loss, because what they did, we don't want to do. What they picked, we don't need. So,
Well, you have like a major philosophical change the way it happened when Parcells took over. Brandon Fields may be the best punter in team history. So that was a good, if you're going to use like a 6th or 7th round pick, I forget, Fields might have been a 6.
I don't support drafting punters before 7th round.
Was he a 6 or a 7? Help me out here.
He was a 7th round, yeah.
Okay, so there you go. The Ted Ginn pick wasn't horrible in retrospect because he did have a long NFL career. However, and this is where, yes, you can do that with every team every year, but the Dolphins passed up on the opportunity to get either Darrelle Revis or Patrick Willis or even Marshawn Lynch. And everybody knew that Ted Ginn Jr.'s kind of lot in the NFL would be as a gadget player and as a returner a lot more so than as a wide receiver.
Deep threat. Hold on, wait a minute. The deep threat too.
Like I said, a gadget player and returner a lot more than as a wide receiver.
Hold on. Gadget is Jakeem Grant. Ted Ginn was not a gadget player. He was Kenny Stills stretch the field. I think a field stretcher. Those guys are important. They're not gadgets.
Not a 9th overall, though.
I think we can look at other receivers that were selected in the top 10 and find a laundry list of players who are worse receivers drafted in the top 10 than Teddy Ginn.
John Ross, the one that comes up. And actually, it's interesting that it's good that we're talking about this because it might lead into our first topic of the day.
Look at you segueing it.
Exactly. Segues are for kids. John Ross, who the Cincinnati Bengals fell in love with in terms of because of his speed and didn't wind up having much of an NFL career. And Dolphins, state secret being revealed here, love speed. Mike McDaniel in particular. So I wrote about this on si.com/NFL/Dolphins, that the Dolphins have a lot of this going on. This is a heart shape for those listening on the podcast, on the audio podcast, and the heart's not producing, but such as light.
You lost your heart power. It went with
I
the
lost my
extra
heart power. I'm heartbroken, but okay.
I've never.
You can't do it. It's my magic Mac that usually does it. Well, anyway, getting to it, the Dolphins love Xavier Worthy from the University of Texas, who is not overly tall. He's 5'11", kind of on the smallish side, 165, but can fly. Set the NFL combine record with a 4.21, and
would fit your description as a gadget player.
Sports Illustrated, well, according to Daniel Jeremiah of the NFL Network, who knows a lot more about these things than a lot of us, certainly in the media, compares him to Hollywood Brown and says he has the ability to run pretty much every route. And, well, I hope it's Hollywood Brown minus the kind of sketchy hands, to put it mildly.
How dare you say Hollywood Brown has sketchy hands?
Okay, fine. I'll modify my statement. He has bad hands. How's that? You didn't like my description of sketchy? I mean, I remember a couple of years ago, there were a couple of games where Lamar Jackson would hit him constantly deep over the top and you just drop after drop after drop. he's kind of settled in on that. Anyway, the whole point is that Albert Breer, the national NFL reporter for Sports Illustrated, did a team by team needs and projections and all that on Monday, and he had a note in there, including that from what he's heard, a lot of teams are suggesting the Dolphins are not in like, they're in love with Xavier Worthy. And again, we know Mike McDaniel's love for speed, so
Yeah. But you know what? I think that's the smoke screen that the Dolphins put out there. And the agent needs Xavier stock to be in the mid to late teens so that he can sneak into the first round. And the Dolphins, I have experienced this for years. Well, they'll allow smoke screen. If they really love the player, do you think that they would tell everybody that they love the player?
no, but here's the thing, though. It wasn't suggested that there was a Dolphins telling people, and I think there were like a lot of connected dots here that because Mike McDaniel is fascinated by speed. They took Devon Achane in the third round last year when they didn't need a running back.
Yeah.
Then there was McDaniel's shot at the Texas Pro Day when he's got a little
giving them goo eyes.
Yeah, goo eyes when he's talking. Why didn't you run? I mean, so again, there's a lot of connected dots going on there.
And McDaniel doesn't even shy away from the fact he loves and is obsessed with speed. And as we had Simon Clancy on last week, because I've thought about it, I've looked at Xavier Worthy. I just it's so much. It seems so redundant to me.
It does.
Especially when I know that they need a receiver with a different skill set and a different arsenal of tools. However, when Simon Clancy was talking to us at episode 268, which I'm telling you right now, you need to go watch it. If you're spending this week getting ready for the draft, you need to watch Simon Clancy's episode and you need to watch Emory Hunt's episode. And we will actually have Emory Hunt on with us tomorrow. Phenomenal conversations, very educational conversations, brought up a ton of names and a ton of fits from Miami, both episodes. Get yourself crammed for the draft Thursday by watching those all Dolphins podcast episodes. But Simon actually talked me into Xavier Worthy. And when we're doing these simulations and mock drafts, I do think receiver is a top 3 need on this team. Yeah, I said it. Top three. Who's your number 3 receiver?
Oh, no. I'm not disagreeing that it's a need.
I want to name your number 3 receiver.
Dude, I just gave you that they don't have that right now. There's nobody who stands out, but more than edge defender, interior defensive lineman, offensive lineman, safety, wide receiver supersedes 2 or more
because
of those.
I think you're playing your base offense is usually 3 receivers. Well, not this team. They use 2 tight ends. I know. But that's a 500 snap player. You still need a receiver for another 500 snaps. You do. And there's 500 snaps right now that are going to Braxton Berrios, River Craycraft, and Eric Uzukama. Are you comfortable with that? Does that satisfy you? To me, their packages are 2 tights. You know who the 2 tights are. Durham Smythe and Jonnu Smith right now. Their packages are 2 backs with Achane on the field with Raheem Mostert. And then their packages are 3 receiver sets. Right now, you got everything you need for every package except for that 3 receiver set. And it's something that you have to address either in the draft or signing an Odell Beckham or a Tyler Boyd. Now, you can do that, but it's going to be more expensive. And then you have to factor in Tyreek's deal has 2 seasons left on it because he's not going to see the 2026 season unless the deal gets redone, which is always possible. And I know we'll discuss Tyreek a little bit later.
Oh, yes, we will.
And Waddle's coming up. Waddle's coming up. You're looking at $17 to $20 million a year for Waddle, which when you put that with Tyreek's $24 million a year, that gets really expensive. And I'm not saying that they shouldn't sign all of those guys, the Waddle and extend Tyreek. What I'm saying is you got to get younger, you got to get cheaper. And drafting Xavier Worthy can help you do that. Now, I will say this. There are other receivers that I would rather draft before Xavier Worthy because they bring a different dimension to this team outside of just speed. But I can definitely see the appeal to the speed. I definitely see it. If you put, and like Simon Clancy said, if you put all three speedsters out there, they're clearing out the field. They could just run goes. And the first 30 yards is wide open for whatever's underneath.
No, I don't disagree with you. And again, and if Mike McDaniel is going to keep the same approach offensively, and there's no reason to think it's going to change, then once the Dolphins move on from Tyreek or vice versa, and again, I'm going to repeat, he's got no. You keep talking about 2 more seasons. He's got no guaranteed money next year. Okay, and I looked at the math. If they were to make him. Hypothetically, I'm not predicting anything here. If they were to make him a post-June 1 cut next year, it's $11 million of dead cap space and $22 million cap savings.
Yeah, and you can never find a player for $22 million that equates to what Tyreek brings to the team.
Correct. But number one, how long is he going to be Tyreek? And then number two, at some point, again, how many receivers are you going to be paying top dollar to? And he's a guy, he's getting a little bit. So to me,
he's getting a little bit what? What you about to say? He's getting a little bit what?
Long in the tooth for a speed wide receiver.
I saw a guy on pace for 2,000 yards before he got injured. I don't know what you saw. I saw the most dangerous weapon in the NFL last season. I don't know what you saw.
Without quite, I'm not. Did I dispute any of that? And by the way,
but you said he was long in the tooth.
First of all, I did not stutter when I said that. And number two, am I lying when I say that the last 2 seasons he has limped to the finish line with various lower leg injuries?
He plays a ridiculous 1,100 snaps. He's not that big. Sometimes it's unfortunate. It's not like his body was breaking down. He got injured getting rolled up on.
Would that be the same kind of an issue were he 24 or 25?
Yes, he would get rolled up on. 20 didn't Jalen Waddle get rolled up on? And
yeah, but
Jalen
maybe
Waddle
the
younger
recuperative powers are greater at 25 than they are at 30.
I'm not arguing that, but
Okay.
if you're saying that Tyreek Hill you're saying Tyreek Hill doesn't have 2 more years left in him?
That's not what I said.
Okay.
That's not what I said.
I'm just making sure.
All I am saying is that at some point the Dolphins are going to look to move on for financial reasons, or if he's not.
That's 2026.
Well, again, he's got no guaranteed money.
To make $45 million, and there's no chance in hell they'll pay that.
He's got no guaranteed money past this season. Okay. Anyway, but I agree with you. This is why Worthy makes sense in some fashion because of the additional speed, like they really need speed, but the additional speed this year and then as a successor. However, to me, I don't put wide receiver in my top 3 of needs because I think edge defender comes first. I think the right guard position comes second, and I think safety comes third.
Edge defender does not come first because you can easily go out and sign a Calais Campbell, and it will be better.
He's not an edge guy. Calais Campbell is not an edge. He's an interior.
Oh, you move everything outside. Calais can play the edge. He can. Calais can play both, especially in Anthony Weaver's scheme. He has and he will. But anyway, that's not – the chicken has not hatched yet. So let's
Okay. I have no idea.
And you're expecting Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb back in what, October? So it's a month.
The bigger question, they will be back at some point. But again, it's not so much when are they back. When are they back to being Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips? Bradley Chubb, by the way, I should mention, for those not aware, was inducted to the North Carolina State Athletic Hall of Fame this past weekend. One of 7 members, and they had an 8th member who was officially inducted, however, voted in 2023, and that was Phillip Rivers. They were the 2 football players who were inducted. Chubb, of course, went to NC State before he was a 5th overall pick in 2018 for the Denver Broncos. Should we move on to Tyreek and discuss Tyreek? Because shockingly enough, Tyreek appears on different podcasts, and invariably he says something that's going to make news. Am I right?
Yes, absolutely. Tyreek App said on, I forget which podcast it is.
$1 million in the
Very
game.
popular. $1 million worth of game. Very, very popular podcast. Probably a top 5 podcast in the world.
Okay.
They got a multi-million-dollar deal from Bleacher. Forget which company. Phenomenal podcast. And Tyreek was featured on the episode and basically said that Mike McDaniel challenged him and called him out after the Kansas City game, basically saying, well, you're the highest paid player in the NFL, the best player in the NFL. You shouldn't be blocked like you were blocked. I forget the cornerback who blocked him.
It was L'Jarius Sneed.
L'Jarius Sneed, who put him on the ground. And slippery turf, it happens. But a competitor like Tyreek, it was a very humbling experience. And Tyreek alleges that Mike McDaniel called him out in front of a team meeting. I have checked with my sourcing, and that has turned up inaccurate. Players never heard that, but this is not surprising to me because Tyreek just says things to say things.
Tyreek loves to do this. Am I right?
Listen, I love the fact that he said it. I wish that it were true. Now, maybe, hypothetically, it was in a position meeting or a meeting with the quarterbacks, or maybe Tyreek is misremembering things. But I was told, team meeting, it didn't happen. And in fact, they had one meeting after the Kansas City game, and that was an exit meeting. It wasn't a film breakdown meeting. But
correct. My understanding, the way I took it is I thought he was suggesting it happened at halftime of the Kansas City playoff game. And the one part that raised kind of my eyebrow a little bit is when he said McDaniel told him, "We're paying you like all that money for what?" That's
you ain't talking to Tyreek like that. Now, maybe it happened at halftime and it was around with the offensive players. But come on, man. Like,
that would make more sense as a motivational tactic after the game. If you're lost, you're done for the season. What would be the point?
Yeah,
to call him out like that.
And here's the problem that we generally have when it comes to Tyreek, and you've educated me on this so well. Even when he says it, you cannot take it at face value because he fabricates the truth quite often because he likes to tell whoppers.
Yeah, and we will write it, but when we write it and that and other comments, it always needs to be specified. Tyreek said, because Tyreek likes to make waves and all that. There are a couple of other things that he said during that podcast that were interesting to me, and I won't even throw in that because it's whatever. I mean, how is it going to be proven? When he said he had he gone up against Deion Sanders in his prime, 175 yards, 2 touchdowns. Okay, I mean, it's never going to happen. So you can say what you want.
Let's not act like Prime didn't give up points. So Prime wasn't like, there's no such thing as a shutdown cornerback. Like Prime gave up points, but Tyreek is one of the greatest players probably in NFL history. And in my opinion, I think who was it that said it recently? Simon said it. There is generational talents where you had Jerry Rice was one generation, and then Randy Moss, you could even say Terrell Owens was one generation. And then Tyreek, he is this generation of wide receiver. What's that face?
You're going to put Terrell Owens on the same plateau as Jerry Rice, Randy Moss, or Tyreek Hill? Are we serious?
Terrell Owens' numbers are crazy.
I don't care about numbers. Take
out the personality. Take out the character.
I know.
He's phenomenal.
I don't care about numbers. He was not like an uncoverable nightmare matchup the way the other three guys are. I mean, come on.
All right,
I mean,
pollsters, put it in the comment
go
section here.
ahead. Yeah,
We
please.
disagree.
Okay.
Randy Moss. Terrell Owens was a more well-rounded receiver than Randy Moss was. Defend that.
Why? Because he would do more work over the middle. Sure, he couldn't go over the top the way Randy Moss did. He wouldn't.
I mean,
He
but
wouldn't.
he went over the top.
He wouldn't. Yeah, but not like. And he wouldn't win jump balls the way Randy Moss did.
We're splitting hairs here.
Okay.
Like, come on.
Viewers, please weigh in and tell Omari's wrong. Anyway, no, but again,
but the point is, Tyreek is this generation's.
Without question.
There's nobody better in this generation than Tyreek. Than, in my opinion,
no.
DeAndre Hopkins, maybe. Who else?
No, but the thing is, Tyreek is so unique, and we've talked about this before, because nobody's ever had that combination of speed and quickness. Usually, receivers have one.
Others have, but not that.
Go ahead. Who comes close? Both
Santana Moss. Speed and quickness.
Close.
Close. I ain't say identical. Yeah. But you asked Steve Smith, speed, quickness, and toughness.
Not the same quickness, but I mean, I don't want to start going. But no, Steve Smith had more toughness, but I don't know that he had the quickness that Tyreek. Anyway, the point and the bottom line I want to get to here is that Deion Sanders was like the premier cover corner. But again, it depends on how long are you asking Deion Sanders to cover Tyreek. If this quarterback has protection, has time to throw, sorry, prime time, you're not covering him.
I agree.
If it's got to be quick throws, Tyreek's not getting open as quickly against Deion Sanders as he is against anybody who's trying to cover him one-on-one. Like it was the Carolina game last season where the Panthers roll out a cornerback, and I don't know if it was Dante Jackson. I can't remember who it was. Like one-on-one out wide with him, and you see the alignment, and it's like, oh my God, really? Are they really going to do that? And boom, he gets behind them by 3 yards within 3 seconds. That obviously wouldn't happen. The other thing that he said that was the most interesting to me is he blamed himself for getting hurt last year, and he used some jargon, didn't totally catch what he was saying, but something along the lines of he failed to wear wrapping around his ankle.
Yeah, he doesn't wrap his ankles.
Well, he blamed himself for getting injured last year because of that. And that's hopefully lesson learned.
No, it's not learned. He doesn't wrap his ankles. Tyreek doesn't wrap his ankles at
practice. He's had ankle issues the last 2 Decembers. So I don't know. Maybe what's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing, expecting different results. Maybe don't do it in September, October, November, but how about wrap your ankles in December? Do us a favor, maybe. Try it, see how it works. I don't know, just a thought. Let's move on. So you put me on the spot last week for my selection in the Fan Nation network-wide mock draft.
Yes.
Where I took Byron Murphy II, the defensive tackle from the University of Texas.
And I would have loved to make that selection, but I was not as fortunate in Sam Farmer's mock draft, which
correct for the Los Angeles Times, which was revealed today. So go ahead and tell the good folks who you chose and why. Justify your pick.
Jerzon Newton. I forget what his other name is because he's Johnny Newton. Yeah. I selected him, the Illinois defensive tackle, primarily because all of the offensive linemen that I wanted was gone. I did not want to go with an interior player like Graham Barton. I did not feel I needed to select a receiver or didn't feel comfortable selecting a receiver, and it would have been Brian Thomas Jr. over Xavier Worthy. Where I sat in that pick at 21 was thirsty and desperate for somebody to trade down. But I knew that if I didn't select a defensive tackle with the 21st pick, there was going to be very little available for me at 55, and I'm going to have to live on journeyman in the 5th round and later. So I didn't want to chance that, knowing that Christian Wilkins was the biggest hole that I had to fill. And so I made Newton the selection. Primarily, also, I work with Leger Duzable, a former defensive lineman. We talked about that. And he's educating me on how the power pigs are an expiring breed. They're going the route of the nose tackle. And right now you need gap killers and penetrators. And that's today's NFL because those guys are getting $20 million. And players are going to do what's getting them paid. So your defensive tackles, they're going to be lighter. They're going to be more mobile. It's an evolution of defensive tackles. Football players, they evolve like dinosaurs based on money. And so we're going to see a different era of defensive tackles moving forward.
No, that's
and Newton is my mind his best penetrator. I would have loved to have taken Worthy, but he wasn't there.
Who?
You're Worthy.
No, Murphy, you mean?
Murphy. Yeah, no, sorry, not Worthy. Yes, Murphy.
Okay, so Graham Barton, who's a very popular pick of the Dolphins, was available, and you bypassed him?
Correct. And I also like BB from Kansas State. I feel like I feel like those centers and those interior players are not going to be in that hot demand in the first round. And I think they're going to be there for me at 55. So I'm going the defensive tackle route, whereas I don't feel like I could do the reverse order. You understand what I'm saying? And also,
that's what I did as well.
Yeah. Also, I think a lot of these offensive linemen, and that's one of the things I'm looking at and studying these offensive linemen. A lot of them are tall, very tall, which means they're not necessarily fitted to play guard. Like Amarius Mims from Georgia.
Huge.
Guy, 6'7". He can't even get into a 3-point stance. How is he going to play guard? And a lot of people, and he's right tackle only. We know we got a right tackle in Austin Jackson. If we're looking at the 2-year window like Chris Greer does, what?
We couldn't move Austin Jackson to left tackle?
You saw what happened that last time he did that.
Well, he's not the same player he was back then, though.
That is true. However, I'm not moving a guy who I finally having some success and has stabilized himself. Okay. I'm just not. Now, would I move Mims and have him groomed to play left tackle? Probably. I could. But my point is, like, even Guyton, a lot of these offensive linemen are not necessarily, and Chris Greer said this, are not necessarily, they're going to be good players. They're not necessarily going to be good fits for Miami. And I think that the Dolphins can address and develop an offensive lineman in the later rounds. I think they can double up on it in the fifth round, those fifth round selections, and groom and find and develop a guy like they've done Robert Jones. And I'm not saying that it's going to be a home run, but good teams that know how to evaluate talent, you know what they do? They draft offensive linemen in the later rounds and develop them. Draft and develop.
Good old draft and develop. And my philosophy has always been, and this is the old school approach, positional value. To me, interior offensive linemen are pretty low on my scale in terms of positional value. And if you're going to draft a guard or a center in the first round, that dude better be, a player. Like,
he better maul people, who BB does.
Well, either that or be like exceptional. But for example, when the Dolphins drafted Mike Pouncey, was it 15th overall in 2011? Mike Pouncey was a stud. So that's, that's okay. Even a right tackle, it's different with the Dolphins now because they have a lefty quarterback, but a right tackle under the traditional set, to me, is not nearly as high of a positional value pick as a left tackle. And this is why, like, going back again in 2014, I wasn't necessarily thrilled with the Juwan James pick because he was a good, solid right tackle.
Austin Jackson-ish.
Yeah. Except when they took Austin Jackson, it was to be a left tackle, which is, again, but there's that one's weird because it's higher position value left tackle, except you also drafted him the same year you drafted a lefty QB. So, but no, I'm good with your Newton pick. And the other factor also is the high end of the defensive tackles, the gap between that top level and the second tier is a lot wider than it would be for your offensive lineman, for example. And your wide receiver, you got 3 complete studs, and then you got a whole bunch of guys. And if you're not getting Odunze Neighbors or Marvin Harrison Jr., you could probably get any of the next 17. And there's so many teams that have good wide receivers in college because it's all about the passing game now. I don't know that there's a huge difference between 4 and 15 among wide receivers.
There's so much of a massive gap. However, the one thing that you have to factor in is positional value and snap count as rookies. A defensive tackle might get 500 snaps, whereas an offensive tackle, if he becomes a starter, you're looking at 1,200 snaps. Not to say that they're going to be healthy, and who do you want to give that 5th-year option to? Who are you looking at? Because that's one of the factors in itself. Do you want to give that 5th-year option to an interior offensive lineman, where it's going to be a lot cheaper, or a defensive tackle, whereas they're starting to get a little pricey? So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. But the one thing that I've learned by doing simulators and mock drafts and talking to people is the Dolphins are not going to be able to address all of their needs and all the remaining holes with the selections that they have. They got to trade down and get a 3rd, if just to try to address some of those additional issues. But I'm one of those people where find players that you like. They don't have to be studs. They don't have to be top 10, top 100 prospects. I would love for the Dolphins to find 10 top 150 prospects that they like, trade down, go get those 10 prospects, and draft and develop them. Because sometimes the Nick Needhams, the Kader Kohus, sometimes those players are just as good as the drafted prospects that you have, the Julian Hills. And this team can identify talent. I just don't know. I'm curious to see if they can develop the talent. And when I say that, I mean draft a guy in the 4th, 5th round and develop him, and he becomes an NFL starter. I know you did it with Andrew Van Ginkel, but I think you need more of that to have the sustained success that you need as a healthy, good organization. Because once you start paying quarterbacks, you're going to have to start living on ramen noodles and beef bologna. So that's just the reality.
The question with Van Ginkel is always, was he always a good player who was underdrafted, or was he a marginal prospect where you tip your hat to the coaching and for making them into a really good NFL player?
I think it's a second, because Van Ginkel was a tweener. Van Ginkel had no standout season at Wisconsin. Van Ginkel went to junior college. He played everywhere in the world, and he was a decent prospect. Can't remember, he was injured his rookie season, and he just developed. He just consistently developed and became a heady player and became a very polished player. No matter what you asked him, he took care of it. And that to me is I've always remember Brian Hartline telling me intelligence is the biggest indicator of whether a rookie will have success or not. And that always stood out to me. If a guy's smart, they know he's got a chance. When a guy's dumb, the players are like, nah, he ain't gonna make it, no matter how talented he is.
I don't disagree with anything you just said, but I will tell you, to me from the start, you looked at Van Ginkel and there was always, there's something there. So, I don't know. To me, I think it's a combination of both. I don't think and I don't want to take anything away from the coaching and the development that was done with him, but I also don't want to shortchange him in terms of what kind of prospect he was. Anyway, I think those were all the topics we had. Let me look at my list very quickly.
Yeah, man. Well, those are all the topics we had.
Oh, should mention this. Time for Dolphin fans to say goodbye to Zach Wilson as he moves out of the AFC East. For those not aware, traded to the Denver Broncos, going over there for a 6th and a 7th round pick, and the Jets are picking up a portion of his salary. So,
hey man, gives him an option.
And unless my memory fails, his last game with the Jets was against the Dolphins when they knocked him out in the first half by pounding the crap out of him, getting him concussed. There was a big hit. I think it was Bradley Chubb. It was Bradley Chubb or Zach Sealer nailed the crap out of him to force our fumble early on. And Zach was probably like, get me away from here. I'm done. Get me away from here.
It's funny how quarterbacks can easily get traded. Like when they can easily force their way off teams where other players are like hostages. But anyway.
Well, this is more like a
purge. Yeah.
You get Josh Rosen vibes with Zach Wilson a little bit. Top 10 pick. Didn't pan out.
I mean, he was not top 10 pick. He was top 5 pick. Josh Rosen was
second. He was a second.
Yeah, no.
Josh Rosen was.
It comes down to he can't read the field. That's just, and maybe Sean Payton can help him, but at least Sean Payton. I don't like what Sean Payton's doing and how he's building his team. But who am I to say? Hell, he could have been the Dolphins coach because he was a genius. So if he was a genius then, he's a genius now. Maybe he's smarter than all of us. We'll soon see.
Well, now they got a QB room with Zach Wilson and Jarrett Stidham.
Woo, sexy. They're going to get a quarterback, and I believe it's going to be Penix. I think Penix is going to be their guy.
See, and everything I've heard and read is Bo Nix is the guy who fits, and Penix will wind up with the Raiders.
Interesting. We'll see.
We shall find out.
We shall find out. Draft this Thursday. We will be here all week. Emery Hunt tomorrow, giving you some draft talk breakdown 2 days before the NFL draft. We will look forward to you continuing to read all our work on Poop.
It's right there under my name, si.com/NFL/Dolphins.
Oh, look at that. Look at that. All right, fine, folks. We will see you tomorrow.